What if AI could catch software bugs before your customers ever see them? Welcome to XTraw AI, the podcast where we extract the raw conversations around AI and its real impact on business and technology. I'm your host, Raghu Banda, and we're kicking off season 18 with an interesting conversation on how AI is transforming software testing and quality engineering. Joining us today is Vasusen Patil, co-founder of Donobu, a startup focused on rethinking how organizations approach software quality using AI. Vasusen, great to have you with us. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back to another episode of our Extra AI podcast. And today, the topic today I have with me Vasusen Patil. Hi, Vasusen, how are you?
Hi Raghu, how are you? I'm good. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on this podcast.
All right, so today, the topic I wanted to go a bit more into the quality and testing aspects. The name of the startup as well is very interesting. I believe uh, Vasusen will let us know about that later.
Yeah, it simply stands for "Do Not Build." The startup is called Donobu. I'm a passionate believer that you shouldn't build anything without testing it.
Great, great. So I'm also titling this episode something like reinventing software quality with Donobu or something like that. I think in
Right.
that lines. I know AI is everywhere. Everybody keeps talking about it. I know there are few startups who kind of solve real enterprise problems. I think there's a mad rush out there, and there's I think, a lot of excitement. I would say. Uh,
Yeah.
while many are talking about AI building code, I know you're talking about AI breaking code
Yeah.
before you customers do. When did you first realize, was saying that quality engineering was ready for an AI-led disruption? Because I know this is before we get into the detailed conversation, I want to kickstart with some
Right.
back questions.
Right. And that's a great question. I think I had this realization somewhere mid 2023 where it really, really struck home when I tested it. I believe it was GPT-4 had just launched or 3.5 still. I don't remember quite well. But I was at Coursera at that time, and we were pretty early on our AI journey. Literally, like weeks, 2 or 3 weeks after GPT was first launched, ChatGPT, publicly, we moved instantly and changed our roadmap and decided to build an internal team that tries out things and teaches everybody. As part, I was leading that group. I was like doing a lot of that evangelism internally inside the company, and because of that, I was starting to code a lot more and do things. So there was this one issue I remember where our marketing team was constantly complaining about that there are some pages where things don't
Hmm.
translate properly on Coursera, because it's a global platform.
Right.
You have French, you have Japanese, you have stuff like that, and suddenly you'll have three strings in Japanese and the rest is in English, and that's just awkward. And there was no good way to detect it for similar languages like French and English, which are written similarly.
Hmm.
It was one of those where our quality team at that point was just telling them it's too hard, just do it manually. And I was wondering what would it be if I just took all of that text and just piped it. We were talking about 30,000 plus pages, and just as a joke, I tried it with like 20 or so manually, just putting those into GPT 3.5. Every single time it detected correctly that there's this is the string that shouldn't be in this language. And after that, I was like, okay, let's try to productionize this internally. And we ran through that script. The project that would have been months for one contractor human to verify, it was just done in matter of, I think 16 hours or something, and we were completely done. That was the first time where I was like, this would be different. If you use vision, if you use text and semantic assertions, life would be very different.
Great, great. I think that's a really interesting and a great aha moment. And I believe
Coursera is one of those places people run to find or to learn things, and then this fast-paced world, I believe we know a lot of things are happening, and that is a very important problem that you were trying to solve at that
Right.
point of time.
Yeah.
Before getting into our conversation, I would like to understand a bit more about your personal journey or professional journey, about how you arrived here, right? I know
Yeah.
you gave me a aha moment, but any backstory or professional
Yeah,
story?
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting. My life has been I've been mostly incredibly lucky throughout. I did my engineering in India. I did my master's here at Duke, and after that, I foolishly decided to do consulting for a year because I was like, I'm gonna change the world. Everybody in masters was all about management consulting for a while. uh, I just got lucky. I ended up getting invited to attend Y Combinator startup school event in
Mhm.
2011 when it was tiny. It was still in a
Wow.
small room in Stanford campus, everything in person. I saw Zuck speak, Drew Houston speak, all of these like people that I had read about on Hacker News are building cool startups. And I was just like, I found my crowd. I need to move to the Bay Area. My wife now, but my girlfriend then, and she was like open to the idea of doing a long distance relationship, and we did that for a year. And I moved out here, joined an early stage startup called WePay. I was
Mhm.
one of the earliest engineers there. I ended up building their API, which became the company, and that was a YC company. And I stayed here. I just enjoyed it. It was in Palo Alto, and then from there I became a manager, director, and so on.
Great, great story, and great background. I know I keep hearing these conversations about how the things keep innovating in different ways at Silicon Valley. I think the innovation capital of the world, and then I keep hearing about different stories about how people are um, get inspired with this Y Combinator startups and other things, and then
Yeah.
even those interactions. So, yeah, let's get into the today's topic. I know software quality is one thing which is very important. I think building code, or even before building code, I think understanding the customer problem is one thing, defining the product strategy, building code. But then I think at a point of time, now you have to convert all this and take it to the customer, or take it and then release it or productionize it. This
Yeah.
is where I think things that's where I think your you really make you really make or break. So that's a very
Correct.
important, interesting problem you're trying to solve. Let's take one step back and understand the state of software quality. I know enterprises today, these huge enterprises, whether it is small, medium business, small, medium, or large,
Right.
they release software kind of faster than ever. I think things are changing
Yeah.
at a rapid
Multiple
pace,
times an hour.
multiple times an hour. But
Correct.
yet, these testing cycles are still painful.
Yes.
Why do
Yes.
you think this quality engineering remains such a bottleneck despite so much of automation happening here?
Well, Raghu, it's a great question because it's always been painful, and it ebbs and flows. It's a game of cat and mouse a little bit, where
Mhm.
where you think you have solved it. Like you talk to any of these folks who used to build software for punch cards or software that gets shipped on a gaming engine and stuff, and they had like these long quality cycles, and they had perfect documentation for every feature and how it works, how it doesn't work, so they never have to release patch, right? I call that the NASA spectrum of quality. Like, if one thing goes wrong, billions of dollars on the line, lives are on the line, and all. And the other side of the spectrum is the Netflix side of spectrum. I mean, sure, it's important, but if things go wrong, that just means that there's a pissed off parent whose kid is not watching some fun show for a few minutes, right? The different bars, and I think companies rightly so decide how much to spend on those because there's a premium on doing well on the product side itself, like actually shipping features. But then, as software has always made it easier to write new features, quality automatically has to catch up. That's how we ended up with inventing, automation suite. Selenium was one big thing that happened on the end-to-end testing cycle. Other stuff like really good unit testing frameworks, API testing frameworks, performance, security testing. All of that has slowly evolved as software. But here's the spicy take, I would say, right now. We are about to see a complete difference in how software is built, right? Claude Code builds an entire app for me in 2 hours. If that's where software is going, which at this point I would be surprised if anyone's arguing with that, then do the tests become more important than software? Because I believe
True.
tests become more important than
More
software.
and more important.
They decide the bounding box of what actually the product does. And then Claude can just fill in the gaps. It knows exactly what to do here, given what you've described. Right? Like, do you want a user to be able to reserve a restaurant? Okay, that's the test. You have described what should happen, and then the software is being built for the test. So I see that as it's always been a game of how fast software development moves and then how much can you verify it.
Mhm. So here, yeah, that's true. I think software development and software engineering is moving at a very rapid pace. And then, of course, quality testing or quality engineering is always playing catch up. So there are quite a lot of misconceptions in this enterprise space, right? About automated testing,
Right.
and this which could solve many number of problems. And there are statements even made saying that, hey, my system, my setup is completely automated. Why should I even worry? I think there are a lot of, but what kind of misconceptions are there? Can you highlight
Yeah.
a bit more that?
Well, I mean, I would love to dispel the biggest misconception. I've worked at Coursera. I have friends that work at many globally relevant companies. And I can tell you, it is a problem everywhere. The biggest misconception is that somehow some smaller startups think that everything about quality can be automated. And
Mm,
maybe we will get to that. But you'd be surprised how much of it is manually verified. I was just joking, like, Figma recently went public.
right.
And I was just on their webpage. Everything looks great. I mean, of course, they went public. And I just looked at their cookie banner. It accepts or rejects cookies. I asked, a small script to just check, hey, are
Hmm.
these rejection buttons actually rejecting cookies? And they were not,
Oh,
right?
okay.
On
Hmm.
the first day of a public company, this is a dangerous situation to be in if you think. And you think like, okay, why is there no test for it? It's really hard, right? Who would have thought to write a negative test for a cookie banner that is a legal feature? But
Hmm.
if you think about your entire software as a whole, verification is always done in a very probabilistic manner. Hey, I will try 10% of the things. And frankly, most of it is shipped with hopes and prayers, even in large companies right now. It's just the way the system is structured.
Is it because like there is always this notion, right? Okay, if this is a high priority ticket, okay, the ticket will be locked. I have my support system. I have my tier one, tier two, tier
Right.
three, or if it is a very high priority, things come up in a different way. So there is, I think there is that kind of a mentality, I believe, where you say that, okay, I have a padded system. So maybe do you think something like that is uh, inherently in there?
Yeah, I think um, I think there's a lot of assumptions, or like there's a lot of optimism. That's what I would
Mm, mm,
say. Everybody believes that once they know this is what it's supposed to do, I've built it with this thing in view, you should just do it. And there's also an assumption that once things have been built, they usually work continuously. Just because something worked for 10 days does not mean it will work on the 11th day. And that's how in testing, we call it a regression test. These are just to catch these kind of behaviors that are important to you. So I see that a lot, and it varies by teams, it varies by maturity, it varies by leadership. I will say this though, even if you have the best automation, If you have never worked with some of those like really good manual testers, then you have not really seen how much stuff can break. Those are the some of the best people in a company to talk to. They know everything about like how things break, and they always have that mindset about trying to break things. And frankly, they
Right.
don't look at it as automation is just a tool for them. They look at it as let's fix this. But if you want to onboard a new PM, new engineer, you kind of automatically gravitate towards these folks because they really keep context of the whole world of your product in their heads.
Right, right. No, I like the way you put. I think the manual testers or the manual testing teams, they always have something in their mind that how do I break things? I know that quite a bit because my
Yeah,
wife works in the testing platform. I think she's more in the quality engineering, quality testing side. She
yeah,
keeps telling, she keeps telling me like, yeah, there are quite a lot of things. I think, yeah, though AI can take a lot of things over, I think testing
yep.
will be one of those things you still have to uh,
Oh, 100%.
rely upon.
Yeah, I feel like you need people who have the right strategy in place and who are dictating what should even be our plan for testing. And then driving a bunch of AI. Today what happens is we confuse the boring dumb parts of testing as if it's a quality person's job. Writing an automation for an existing feature to make sure that that existing feature is working is not a job any human should really do. It's not
Right,
fun.
right, right.
It's just not great. The worst of worst, I've seen this a lot recently, and you'd be shocked that this still happens. Many teams will say we have regression tests. What they mean is they have a Excel sheet with test cases, and
Mhm.
they farm those out to a human who then logs in and actually verifies each checkbox and says manually, I click, 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 done. And if your team wants to ship like 3 times a day, this person does it 3 times a day. The same
Right,
thing. That is
right,
not a job I would wish anybody has to do. And that's not something to be proud of. That's not
right,
quality.
right. Right. So these are some of the problems enterprises are facing, right? Like I
Right.
think they struggle with these regression gaps or flaky tests, and then quite a lot of these environmental instability, and sometimes even late defect detection. Some of these things, right? But what are out of some of these? What are those most commonly identifiable things from an enterprise standpoint? Like
Yeah.
uh,
I think
when we.
the two that stand out the most, I would say, one is usually lack of coverage.
Mhm.
Especially for new features, you see this a lot where they have to add it later. And the second thing usually is the maintenance overload. Because if you have a lot of good coverage, then the entire focus becomes how are you maintaining your test suites, and it becomes a game of everybody blaming everybody else for the problems. So if a test breaks, is the test wrong or is your product wrong? Is the test flaky or is your product itself flaky? Maybe it runs fine 10 times and then 11th time it breaks. That becomes a big challenge in enterprises because egos are involved, politics is involved, people have agendas. It becomes a huge challenge in these larger companies.
Mhm. So yeah, so let me yeah, let's get into this aspect of uh, scalability, right? I think things with um, medium to large enterprises, I think, or huge enterprise landscapes, like when you are testing across these scalable or landscapes which are huge, like in ERP systems or cloud or microservices,
Yep.
they get so complex. So
Yep.
how do you think things are happening, and what are some misconceptions over there? Because here now the problem is compounding a lot more.
Correct. I will say, we built over the years, collectively as an industry, we've built a good muscle of and good way to detect code smells and problems. So, if you have microservices, you kind of want them really well integration tested, and you also so your API testing is a big thing, and you basically want to have some rules around 80% code coverage for unit test coverage and all of that. So those have are becoming standard. I will say the biggest gap I personally observe is what is the experience of the end user,
Mm.
right? I don't know if you remember the common meme in testing is you can open this window and you can open this window, but you can't open both the windows
Yes.
together, right? Because that's a joke. Like I tested my window, I tested my window, but together they don't open, and the customer doesn't care. The customer only wants to open the whole windows that they have. And that's the big challenge I see. It doesn't matter how complex your system is. Like, let me ask you this, right? Like, do we know how many microservices Yelp has versus Uber? And do you think any customer cares? They open the
No one
app,
cares.
they
Yes.
don't care. Is it a monolith? What the challenge is when teams get so obsessed with their stack and talking about how they are that they start forgetting how does their product actually behave? How does it come off? Does it spark joy? Does the
Mm.
customer like it? Does it work? Right?
Right. Right.
Is it secure? Does it work? But then it's like, is it usable? Does it spark joy? Is it high quality? Those are things you don't really see by looking inside the code. You actually have to use the product. And this is where, the technical term for this is end-to-end testing, or E2E tests, or, usability tests, user testing. There are multiple ways, but end-to E2E has become a standard for a while, I'd
Mm.
say. The challenge with that is all eng leadership. You asked me about misconceptions. All engineering leaders, including me in my past job, we used to always draw the testing pyramid. We would say, oh yeah, you need a lot of unit tests, you need a lot of integration tests, and you need a tiny bit of end-to-end tests at the top,
Mhm.
right? And that's true, right? But why was it true? If you think about the assumption, have you ever met a user or a CEO who says, I wish less of our product was tested as a
Yep.
user? No,
No.
nobody says that. That's a
No.
ridiculous statement. Then why is
Mm.
the testing pyramid such a common concept?
Mm.
Because it's not based on what people want, it's based
Right.
on constraints of the current world. And the constraints of the current world are end-to-end tests are extremely hard to create,
Set up.
extremely
Yeah.
hard to maintain, and they seem to be not trustworthy because they are flaky.
Mm.
But let me ask you, if that constraint goes away, again,
Yeah.
who is going to say, I don't want that? Like everyone's going to say, I want
Yeah.
massive amounts of tests. Test everything, test it all the time.
Mm.
Randomly test things on my website. Who wouldn't want that if that were possible? That's the future I envision. I call it the testing skyscrapers, not the testing pyramids.
Great. I think great analogy. I think it's, yeah, I think it should never be the pyramid. I think it should be the skyscraper because that is where
Yeah,
the CEO or the CFO, when they look into the product, I think you need to you need to know how fast my product fails and how fast it can be fixed. If I know
correct.
it even before it is shipped out, that's even better.
Yep, yep.
So now let's get into this DevOps world, right? I think DevOps,
Mhm.
and there is this CI/CD pipelines. They amplify a lot of pressure on these QA teams, right? I think nowadays, now
Yeah,
that with all this things going on around with AI, how do
yeah.
you think these things are going on right now, and what are your thoughts about how it should be handled?
Right, right. I will start off by explaining a pretty major slide that was on my fundraising deck last year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It was just three words: CI, CD, CQ.
mm.
CQ does not exist today,
Does
but
not exist.
CQ
Yeah.
needs to exist. Continuous
Mm,
quality is the only way you solve the CI CD conundrum. If you do continuous integration, continuous deployment, and now you have manual testers or like the or random, not perfect,
mm,
non-continuous system testing stuff, you're not going to make it. It just doesn't work. So
mm,
that's the thing for me is it's going to be faster. We can keep fighting it, or we can just lean in and say that's how software is built. Well, if software is built at that rate, software should be tested at that rate. You just add a continuous quality layer on top, which does mean you have to add a lot more automation. Now, automation is perfect for deterministic things. It has
mhm,
always been. It's been really hard for subjective things. Let me give you an example. Let's say let's say you were in charge of a major marketing campaign for a public website, right? Maybe you are running Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
and now you have this December campaign, and you have a campaigns list, and you have some guidelines. Every marketing team in the world has some guidelines, just to give an example, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to subjectively analyze, is the messaging, the UI, the pictures we are using, are they matching our guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is
Right.
subjective. That is not
Right.
deterministic. Uh,
Right.
but it's subjective enough that a normal college grad can verify that given the guidelines. If you have a dog to know what kind of stuff is allowed, what's not allowed. For example, there was a fun guideline on pictures that I had seen before, that every tile should have a human in place. Even YouTube does this a lot. It's not a
Right.
requirement from YouTube, but if you have a person's face in the thumbnail, it performs better, right? If that were your guideline, yeah, 5 years ago there was nothing that you could use to do automation for that. You had to use humans, but
Mm.
today you can. You can literally ask an a GPT kind of model, LLM, any of the LLMs, to
Right.
go visually verify that instantly and tell you, is there a human in the thumbnail or not?
Mm.
So that's what
Beautiful.
I mean, that you can start doing automation on even subjective behaviors, which changes the game.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I like the way you've kind of turned it around, I believe. Let's now get into Donobu.
Uh-huh.
Um, let's talk about Donobu at a high level. So let's start with this, right? At a high level, how does your AI approach differ from the traditional rule-based, these kind of test automation tools out there?
Yeah. It kind of differs, but also not. It complements quite a bit of it. First of all, we do export rule-based automations. We don't use AI to test stuff unless you have to. Like the extreme example we just talked about, is there a human in the thumbnail? That's an extreme example. Most of the time, you're just trying to see, is the thank you message showing up after onboarding, right? That
Right.
you can just write basic deterministic test in a boring language, TypeScript, Python, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, just verify that, and that's way less flaky. That is correct. That is the way to do it. But even writing that test, that experience sucks. So what if you used AI to write that test? So we let our LLM, and on top of the LLMs, we have our own small model. What it does, it visually goes through the website just like a human would. It drives it. It drives the product. It gets the selectors, and then it writes a deterministic automation. So what's running as a test is not the LLM doing it again. It's a normal automation. So first you have made that part better. The authoring part of a test, maintenance part also gets very good, because every time a test fails, instead of instantly failing to an engineer and them having to wake up and figure out what's going on, you fail first to the autonomous AI agent on Donobu, and then Donobu looks at it and says, "Okay, let me fix this," or maybe this change, like simple minor thing like the registration button is now called register now, right?
Mhm.
And it can, any engineer would also make the same thing. It makes that changes, it sends a pull request for people to look at it. So that's how it does it. When it comes to pure subjective automation, there's just not a way, as we just discussed, in a
Mm.
normal automation suite to do it. That's where we then add those features. So a classic example that is everywhere right now is chatbots. Everyone's
Right.
adding a
Right.
chatbot, right? And I have a funny story to tell here. Like, if this was my team at Coursera. We were launching Coursera Coach, which was a chatbot. I was a senior director, quite removed from the day to day. So I came in at the last week, where we were doing what was called dog fooding. Everyone's just coming in and testing. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I've been assured it's been tested really well. It does, everything's great, and it's a chatbot. It answers questions about your course. I go in there and I asked it, "This is a pretty cool course. What else do you recommend?"
Mm.
Uh, and it sent me some courses from Udemy, which is a direct competitor of the company,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're like, what? I remember just telling my team, how's this tested? And they were like, oh, we didn't think of that use case. Let me do this. Uh, and then they made sure that they've added a test. I looked at the test and they had actually searched for the word Udemy in the response. You can't, you cannot assess a
Yeah,
response
yeah,
like that with static analysis of the text. You have to actually
right,
assess the response in a semantic manner.
right.
And just because the test suite doesn't have it doesn't mean you shouldn't. So now what we do, for example, in Donobu, you can actually write a normal test like page dot go to blah, page dot click this. But then you can also write page dot AI, verify that the chatbot is, try to break the chatbot and verify that it does not talk about your competitors, and try it 3 times. So what it would do
Mm.
is on our side, we are using a different LLM to try to break that thing in a more subjective manner. That's how you add testing.
Mm.
So obviously, maybe you don't add a breaking change for this. Like you say, this is a good to have test. But this is where I think subjective testing is evolving.
Beautiful, beautiful. I like the way you've explained that, where you could use AI and kind of checking across the different LLMs and verifying and kind of making it even more subjective to understand the response and then
Right.
respond ideally. So, Donobu, the agent that you have or your product, like you said, it sits on top of. Uh, so you can access any of these LLMs. Is it
Any of them.
configurable by the end user or is it
Yes.
configured? Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
do you want to talk a bit about how that is uh, done?
Yeah. And it's also a good point to mention. You asked me what are differences or how did we build the product.
Right.
For
Right.
us, we have taken some pretty contrarian bets very early. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of them is this, right? We don't, much of testing today, or most software tries to hold the customer's data or important process hostage. They say, "Oh yeah, use our cloud. We will run the test. This is it." And then what happens when the contract ends, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't do it for such a critical thing like testing. Then teams are stuck with having to build everything themselves and maintain it. We took a contrarian bet that we want to have the teams have full ownership, but also make it easy in their own stack to do this. So what we started off is everything is local first. There is no cloud on
Mm-hmm.
Donobu. There is no proprietary LLM model. We support all the three major ones, and frankly, some more in the enterprise. We allow them to bring AWS Bedrock and others. And the idea was like, let's just make it super easy for a company to configure it based on what's allowed in their world, so they
Mm-hmm.
don't have to ask the legal teams for more permissions than they need to. Let's not make it insecure. Let's not take their data into our world. Let's keep it in their world, and just charge for providing the license of the software. And I know that that's very contrarian because most people just like to hear that as an idea that everything's in a cloud and everything's it's hard for a customer to migrate. I always tell my team I want a customer to be married to us because they love us, not because we have signed a contract with them. Like, let's make it easy for them to own their testing.
True. Beautiful. Beautiful. So, without getting into the confidentiality details or the names of the customers or scenarios, could you explain a scenario uh, in the context of this
Mhm.
AI-driven testing, how it reduced a particular risk or improved velocity significantly?
Yeah,
It is up to you. If it's a public customer, you can name it. If not, I think don't even
yeah,
worry
yeah.
about it.
Oh no, we're not allowed to talk about
Yeah,
this customer, but it's
sure.
a company I guarantee you and I both know really well. And they are phenomenal with how much they care across the board about testing, about deeper areas of testing, like testing localization, currencies, and testing unique experiences in different parts of the world and all of that. Uh, they showed us a roadmap. We were working with this team, and they told us they had amazing test cases created, and they said it will take them somewhere around 5 to 6 months to get all
Mhm.
of them done. And it's about 300 test cases. We finished 171 in 4 days with just one tester from our side. And it was such an eye-popping moment for them when they saw those tests running and just actually catch it. So we caught about 13 real issues. One was critical enough that it turned out to be a P1. Somebody was woken up for it. But just that feeling of finally all of my specifications are being met on a production app, that was just incredible for them. And their own team, they were just excited about it because they didn't have to spend time over the dumb task of the automation part. They could just focus on what they want, and they could continue adding, frankly, more stuff to do, build more layers on that skyscraper.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So let's have another interesting question. I know you handle the, the dynamic UI changes or self-healing test scripts, maybe all this predictive clustering or the defect clustering and all these. How do you do this? Like, meaning, is there a methodology that you follow, or what kind of, or what kind of methodology that you follow through?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a good question. That is where the most complex parts of the world lie when it comes to it. And to be honest, Raghu, the biggest issue is there's too much PS from competition and companies in this world. Everybody
Right.
since AI came around, slapped now with AI on their website, or does a lot of like just self-healing is become one of those terms, unfortunately, that everybody can call a minute thing self-healing. Like, oh, I just changed the selector and now my model can
It's
figure that
self-healing.
out. Self-healing test. Like, no, no, what is true self-healing, right? I always remind people, like, think about true self-healing as you say, being in Google Maps or driving a Waymo or something, where you're completely going, this is your route, but something changed now, but you still know the destination. You can figure out an alternative route dynamically and get there. That's what is self-healing, not just a very, very minor thing that you do where you're just like, a lane assist or something. That's what I
Right.
call it. I would love for some of that terminology to get into quality as well. So how do we differ on that? And we haven't completely nailed every aspect of it. For example, we cannot figure out every single failure unless we get access to their, error logs
True,
or
true.
databases or whatever. But here's what we can do. Let's take a simple use case. We've been talking about onboarding flow or something. Maybe your app has an onboarding flow. You have written a fantastic test for it. One of your engineers added a new one engineer or new product manager added a new required field on the onboarding flow, right?
Mm,
Now, and maybe it's not that important of a field, right? It's not, but your test was, is my onboarding flow working? Am I getting a thank you page? That's your intent.
mhm,
Now, let's say they added a country field and now country field is required.
mhm,
Almost every test suite is going to fail. So is ours when it runs the test. But then what's the failure? The failure is simply that if you analyze it as an engineer, you say, oh, yeah, I forgot to add
right.
the change. I just need to also fill in the country field, right? That's
Mhm,
what happens. Our agent looks at that autonomously, makes a decision as subjectively, goes through the flow, makes a decision, says, oh, yeah, this doesn't matter to the actual test case. The test case is, can I finish the onboarding and get a thank you page? So let me also add this new country thing in the test, rerun the test. Yes, it's now working. I still get the thank you page. That's what the user wanted. But hey, maybe I should verify this. After that, ask the human for an input by showing them a diff, saying, this is what I changed. Is this the right way? So we don't call the test passed or failed at that point. We call it self-healed. It's a third state that we introduce in a pass fail scenario, saying, this test needs you to watch to see what we did. But let's say now the same test, if the test case was, make sure there are these fields on the test,
mhm, mhm,
only five, but now there's a sixth field.
mhm,
Now you have made a problem mistake, right?
right.
Now the
Right.
test will go there and say, yeah, there are six fields, but my intent is there should be only five. Hey, that's a real failure. Let me fail this test, right?
Right.
So that truly fails. It's not like it's fake fixing. It
Fake
has to
fixing. Yeah.
know the intent. Now, in all of this, what was the magic thing? You wanted to know in plain English, plain any other language, you want to know what is the intent of the product person. What is it that they are testing? And today, the big challenge is most test suites, there's no way to define that intent inside code. It's stored in some other Google Sheet or some other software. What we do differently is we bake the intent into the code base itself, into the test itself. And so now, when the test runner, our test runner on top of Playwright, which is the standard technology we use, we are still completely compatible with the standards. But when it fails, we fall back to read this intent dynamically and decide what should we do at that point. That's a big change on how to do software. Yeah. And it goes back to like that analogy of Claude Code can fill in the gaps. You just define the boundaries, and the boundaries are intent.
Right. So intent-based testing, that is beautiful. I think I know this is getting interesting. Now, I know we've talked a bit, I think, on this and getting more and more interesting. At this point, I want to bring in our XTraw AI question. This is what I term the billion-dollar question. I know we have, I know you already talked about some kind of differentiations and this kind of things, but if I'm a CIO choosing between some legacy automation tools and these AI native testing platforms, what is that you tell them? Like, why should I rethink my entire this strategy, the quality strategy or the quality or testing strategy?
Right.
What is that thing you advise the CIOs?
It's something that happens almost daily, sometimes weekly for sure, but sometimes even daily. There have been weeks when this exact topic comes up. Overall, like, hey, what should I do with how should I structure my engineering org? How should I structure my product org? So I always tell people to look forward, right? Like, look out 1 to 2 years at least, if not more. But 1 to 2 people can kind of, you can tell how much work Cursor does today, how much work Claude does today, how much Codex does as an agentic IDE. If you draw that line forward, even with no change in the low level models, you can see a world where more than 95% of your code is being created using these tools, right? So you have to assume that. I was literally in a meeting with the CTO who got enamored by this other company who was just like, oh, we will provide you 3 testers on Slack, and they will be, don't worry, they know AI, or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, but do you really want that? Do you want your engineers to not have access to your own tests and be in charge? Because today it's your engineers, but tomorrow it's your engineers plus their coding agents. That's the world that's coming. Everyone's using coding agents paired with your engineers. Sometimes the coding agents are acting autonomously. What keeps it honest is the test. They need to be able to run this thing. So for me, it's like, this is where software is getting. It's all going to be background processing of features, and testing those features, fixing of the bugs will happen in the background too, many times. So in that kind of a world, you want to be ready for it. It doesn't mean you have to be completely there today, but you can't paint yourself into a corner and say, I can never move to that world. So the way I recommend people is, don't go all in. Start with one area, one tiny feature, right? Especially with something like Donobu, it's completely additive. It does not need you to throw away any of your strategy. Frankly, we don't even need you to change your resourcing internally. We provide you a forward deployed tester who comes in and sets it up for your team, trains them also on how to do it, and then they can move from there. Because that is the way to do it. That gives them confidence, and they can move forward.
Beautiful. I like the way the concept, the forward deployed tester. Testing is becoming more and more important in this age of AI, in the era of AI. We are getting to the close of the conversation. But before we get there, what are those 2-3 shifts, critical shifts enterprise leaders must make in their mindset about the quality engineering in this age of AI? Because the thinking and the mindset has to change. I know you've explained a bit about how it should be more forward thinking and futuristic, but are there any critical shifts that have to come in from an
Yeah.
enterprise leader standpoint?
So when I talk to enterprise leaders, they say universally, here's what you hear: "Hey, my company just doesn't move as fast. I hear all these stories. These people are
Mm,
moving so fast, but my people don't seem to be doing that. Why?" And I always tell them, well, yes, maybe half the time your people might be the problem, right? Maybe you have too many skeptics in your company. Yes, but that's the lazy answer. That's not always true. People have the best intentions. Employees are not dumb. They want the company to succeed. They are also
right.
trying. So then something else is stopping you from moving faster. Quite often it is actually you're not architected to take advantage of these new innovations, first of all. So you have to pay down the cost. Some of the re-architecture has to happen. uh, I recently made a LinkedIn post about it, where we, on my company, we added within 2 hours in between a kid's birthday event, we were able to add a Google Auth sign up. But it wasn't because the AI added the Google Auth sign up. It was because our architecture supports the AI adding it so easily that it
Mm,
wouldn't have broken anything else. And the second thing is, if you want to move fast, you want to build safety, right? You
mm,
can't make the car go faster if you do not trust the safety of the system. Safety in software is your quality and your test automation suites and all that. If you invest in those, then you get the right to move faster. Otherwise, you're just complaining for no reason, right? Like, this happens a lot, where people just want to move fast, but they don't want to invest in all the other things that go with it.
beautiful, beautiful. So I know this is an important question, almost coming to the end. Uh, I wouldn't say 3 to 5 years, but in the next 2 to 3 years, what do you think about the way autonomous testing is progressing? I know when we talk about building code faster, initially there was this care about overtaking or replacing developers or engineers,
Mhm.
but now the thought process has changed. Oh no, it is going to be like an agent helps me. So it will
Yes.
make me build faster. So I can do productivity gains much more faster and I can work on other things. So now the same thing I'm asking in the context of quality testing, autonomous
Yep.
testing. When autonomous testing comes, what is that message for the testers out there? Because testing is a very important field. What
100%.
are your thoughts?
Yeah, and it's exactly what you said, right? There was this completely false belief that everything is just going to be, taken over by AI, and no engineer needs a job. And you see those funny posts where a non-technical person on LinkedIn mentions, "Look, I had my app created by AI, and it's on localhost, right? And nobody can actually access the app because they don't understand
Right.
simple things like this." But the engineers who are good feel like superhumans, right?
Mhm.
Who's doing that for testers who are good? I always remind my team, engineers have cursor and cloud code.
True.
What does the testing team? We are building that. We are going to be that for the tester. And the tester cannot go through the code. That is a way of cheating. You don't go through that because your user has no idea what's behind your system. They go
Yeah.
through the product. We are going to make it easier for our test teams to do the same. And once that happens, what ends up happening is engineers are shipping more features. That means the testers also will do a lot more with much better tooling than today's world, where they are expected to do a lot more with really crummy tooling.
Right. Right. No, beautiful. I like the way it's explained, because the thing is, engineers and developers have cursor or cloud code,
Yeah.
and that is really, really increasing their productivity. And now they're creating a lot more,
Yep.
much more
Yep.
faster. And the poor tester or the QA team is getting bombarded with a lot of things. And
Right.
of course, with these tools, again, there is also this case about, hey, what's going to happen? But like you mentioned, this is products like Donobu
Yep.
ideally should help the testers or the testing platforms to a great extent.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Raghu, it's like you said one thing that is very important. One, more software is being created, sure, but there's also another trend that is also happening parallelly, which is more software is becoming partially autonomous. Software that
Right.
used to be fully deterministic is no longer fully deterministic, right?
True.
5 different people can have a completely 5 different experiences now on a software platform because they are interacting with not a deterministic system. Sometimes they are interacting with an agent, or sometimes they have like dynamic flows. That world is even more chaotic for a tester. How do you test all these branches? Which is why we have to give them tools to attack the problem both ways.
Beautiful. I love the conversation. I really learned a lot in this QA world, or the testing world. Glad that we had this conversation. If anyone wants to reach out to you, what is the best way to reach out, or
Yeah, I am.
any references? Yep.
For sure, I'm on Twitter, or
Mhm.
X as they call it now. I'm on LinkedIn, and they can always email me. It's my first name at donobu.com. Go to our website. Our tool is free to download. We are one of those people who don't say contact us. We say try it yourself.
Right.
We trust our product.
Beautiful. Amazing. And yeah, looking forward.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me on your amazing podcast.
Thank you.
Take care.
Vasusen, thank you for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. It's fascinating to see how AI is not only transforming how software is built, but also how it is validated, tested, and trusted before reaching customers. Quality has always been one of the most critical yet underestimated pillars of software innovation. And as development cycles accelerate, the role of AI in ensuring reliability, stability, and confidence in every release will only become more important. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to XTraw AI. We're excited to kick off season 18 with conversations like this, exploring how AI continues to reshape industries and enterprise innovation. Happy predicting the future with XTraw AI. Until next time, stay curious, keep innovating, and as always, stay XTraw.